Mitch says, curious what you think about lack of BMX shops in the US these days. Seem we have skate shops everywhere, but no one carries BMX. It's hard to say because like I'm in the industry in a sense and ultimately want to own a bike shop. One day that's kind of like my dream is to pivot this into a bike shop. I think we have a problem. Let's say the guys who rode BMX professionally or semi-professionally in the early 2000s or the 90s are the guys now that own the BMX shop. Most people that own BMX shops actually rode BMX. They rode semi-professionally. They didn't actually go anywhere with the sport per se. And so they opened up a bike shop. Okay. And that's great because everyone's dream, if you can't stay with something that you're passionate about, regardless. Okay. And so if you're super passionate about BMX and you can't ride professionally and stay in the sport that way, becoming a merchant in the sport is like a thing. That's what I'm not good enough to go pro. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make content about BMX and stay in the sport. And so that's what I'm doing. And so anyway, what I'm getting at is these guys that own the bike shops now, they feel really entitled. In my opinion, they think that because they rode BMX, because they own a bike shop, people should support them. What they don't realize is like, capitalism and where we're at right now is that great. And people should support them, but understand there's tons of people like them and some are going to be much better. And so you look at something like, say Source or Dance Comp, who are just absolutely killing the game right now because they jumped on e-commerce and they built up such a strong e-commerce presence. The guy that owns the bike shop who decides to open at noon and work until 5 thinks that that's unfair, and it's not. They're not entitled to have that business if they can't compete with the bike shops that are dominating the market. And I think e-commerce, like I think BMX economy is like 10, 15 years what the normal economy is. Like if you look at the way Amazon's operating right now, BMX is one of the few that's still like a core brick and mortar shop and stuff like that. Brick and mortar shop structure, everything that, and it shouldn't be. I think that's way behind. But you have the old guys who think that people should drive all the way down to their shop, pay crazy prices for repairs and stuff like that when you can learn it on YouTube and buy the parts from them. And this is what happens usually when you go to a shop is you say, I want these handlebars. They say, cool, we'll order them from you or we'll order them for you. And then they order the parts just like you could have done. And for some reason they think they should still be in business because I don't know. I think it's silly. So anyway, I think the lack of BMX shops comes from a bad mindset and resistance to change. And it's just something that happens. Like we're still able to get BMX parts, even if there's not any bike shops. And maybe I'm insensitive to the subject because I've never had a local bike shop. We have 2 bike shops here. One owner is a dick and they don't carry BMX. The other one doesn't carry BMX either. And so I've never had that real close connection to a shop. I just don't think the smaller shops could have jumped on board and done a lot more with e-commerce. I mean, Stack is a prime example of that. Like Larry, the owner's probably 40s and rode semi-professionally, very similar. And he owns Stacked in Riverside. And he's done, as much as I don't like Stacked, he's done a very good job at jumping on the e-commerce train. And he's building up a pretty good presence with that. And so I think he's probably going to stick around a lot better than some of these other shops that'll eventually get killed off by the bigger shops that are doing what they need to do. So anyway, that's kind of my take on it. I don't think it hurts BMX so much. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I just think it's caused by a bad attitude and it's kind of too late for that. I think new shops will pop up, but they'll be more on the e-commerce side of things. And and if we switched over, say distributors allowed shops to sell on it, cut out distributors, shops would have better profit margins. You'd sell on Amazon, the Amazon fees, and still make your profit. Now it'd put distributors out, but what it would do for the customer is that we could get our parts, say with Prime, right? So then we don't have to wait five days for something and we get it with Prime. And at the cost of a handful of people going out of business, people that distribute parts and kind of take from us, like we don't have any contact with the main brand stay in business, the shop stay in business. We move to that model. Us, the riders, get a much better experience because of it. But there's people that I'm actually listening to Sam Walton's biography, and he's talking about how they changed the model and a lot of people hated it. And he said, but people think that people just want a cut of something no matter what. And it's kind of the same way in the bike industry. I think that they say the distributors feel like they deserve 15 to 20% just to distribute these bikes to different shops so the shops could just get it from manufacturer. You know, it's not anyway, big long tangent. Good question. I love talking about stuff like that. It might be boring to a lot of people, but I really like that thought that it provokes, because I do think BMX is way behind. Mitch, hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're feeling better.